Alrighty.
Welcome everybody to morning cap because this is early.
It is. It's
Well, it's
early.
summertime, so we can handle it. Everything. But thank you for being here, Greer. We're gonna hop right on into it because we both got a busy day coming up. So yeah, let's just talk about it. Right before we came on air, we were just talking about I'm going to Essence Festival in New Orleans this weekend for 4th of July weekend and all. And there's been some controversy. Your pastor, you can correct me if I'm wrong or fact check me. He said that we need to be staying away from the Target booth at the very least. And that caused some controversy. People were like, well, that was already planned a long time ago and whatnot. And what are your thoughts on that? We just gonna hop in. We just gonna talk like normal.
Yeah, man. Well, good morning. Welcome everybody to WeekCap. It is bright and early, and yeah, we got July 4th weekend coming up. Essence Fest is going to be a big part of that weekend for many folks down in New Orleans, and Target is going to have a booth there. They're going to be giving out merchandise. They're going to be, talking about the store. And so Pastor Jamal Bryant, alongside others, have said to stay away, to not spend any money at that Target booth at Essence Fest because we are still boycotting Target or fasting from Target because they continue to refuse to abide by the four main demands that the Black church has and that all Black folks really should have, which is just to treat everyone fairly and to make sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are a part of Target's daily interactions with folks. And so I'm not going to Essence Fest. I do hope that everybody has a good time, a safe time. I'm not sure if Pastor Brian is going to be there or not. I think he was last year, but he has. And other pastors, again, have encouraged folks to just kind of stay away from Target, continue to resist. I believe that this ongoing boycott against Target is still one of the largest protest movements or largest boycotts of its kind since the Montgomery bus boycott during the civil rights movement. So continue to call these companies out. Dollar General is on the list. I think McDonald's recently got added to the list. So just be conscious where you're spending your money. Try and redirect that money into Black businesses or Black owned businesses. And I don't know, we might actually end up creating more healthy individuals by doing some of these acts.
I didn't even know about McDonald's. My bad on that, y'all.
And that's okay. Look, that's one of the best parts of the movement, if you will, for me is you have folks learning all the time. I mean, there are many companies on the list, so it's very hard to boycott them all, but it's important to be mindful and be conscious. I believe targetfast.org. I'll fact check that in real time, but I think that has a running list of companies that we are boycotting. It also has instructions on what you can do, right? Not just what you shouldn't do, but what you can do to positively contribute to this movement. So, unfortunately, I think McDonald's is on there, Dollar General, Walmart, John
Walmart.
Deere.
Okay.
So they're Amazon. And so I think, just be mindful of how you're spending your money and how these people feel about you, right? I mean, look, we'll get into it, but Jeff Bezos just went and bought the whole entire island of Venice and had his wedding. And these people do not really care about you at a
Yeah.
micro level. And so for you to be just conscious in how you spend your money is important.
Yeah. You know, so thank you for pointing out that Walmart is on that list because a lot of folks have been saying in the comments or wherever, even when I talk on the streets, well, digital streets. But anyway, a lot of people are like, where's Walmart and all this? How come they get a pass? So that's often mentioned a lot of times when I bring up the Target boycott fast with people and Dollar General ain't that's gonna be easy because ain't nothing hardly a dollar in there. So
I
and
mean, it's true, and let me just mention this, Clay, while we're on this subject, is Pastor Bryant, who is helping to lead this movement. He's not the only leader, but he's helping to lead it. He is approaching these companies differently, and so for Black folks or folks who are lower on the socioeconomic ladder, we understand that Dollar General may be all that you have in your community. And so he's asking people, in the case of Dollar General, to email their corporate headquarters, to call their corporate headquarters and really press them on their DEI policy. And so he's not asking you to starve yourself, but he is saying if you don't need to go to Dollar General, don't go to Dollar General. If you can get away with not going to Target, which you can, then don't go to Target. One other point is that unfortunately, some banks are on the list as well. Bank of America is on the list because they've rolled back their DEI policy, except they were one of the foremost corporations after George Floyd was murdered actually talking about DEI. And they increased their minimum wage, I think, to $15 or $20 an hour across the company, even for their custodians. And so to see them walking back or walking away from DEI is a little unfortunate. And all of this seems a bit arbitrary, like companies are just jumping on the wave. So again, targetfast.org, I just checked, it's still live. It has a running ticker at the top about which companies have stepped back from DEI. So yeah, govern yourselves accordingly.
Yeah. And another thing too is I'm glad you mentioned about the lower socioeconomic rung of the ladder, because often I hear some folks say, well, we can't boycott everywhere because we had to kind of take for granted, that a lot of us don't live in areas, especially if you go out to rural areas, even just driving just Myrtle Beach, taking the back roads there. It's not too much out there but a Dollar General or, some like a small little mini mart. A lot of times, and a lot of criticism, at least that I've received on my end about Pastor Brian, is that he's kind of speaking from a bourgeoisie perspective where he has all his money. He's telling you not where to go, but yet he's not directly paying your bill. So well, I think we have to be very careful that we're not speaking from an ivory tower perspective when we're asking people to go on these boycotts when it's very convenient for someone of a certain particular level of means to boycott anything. I mean, and even all the way down to McDonald's. And that might seem like, yes, that's a no-brainer, but a lot of urban communities, especially, there's sometimes we use that term food desert a lot or medical deserts where there's no other pharmacy around except it's a chain like a Target or Walmart and such. That's all that some folks just have. And then when folks go in there, they get side eye. It's like, well, hey man, or hey lady, like, I mean, what you doing for me? And so we have to
Right.
be very careful how we're directing these, these boycotts and all. And yes, DEI is important, but we also do have to recognize too, for better for worse, Target and Walmart, they do showcase black products. So what people want to do with the information, they can do with it. But that is something that people who push back against the boycotts do say, well, they push black products. So how can we so what level of the boycott are we doing and then how is it really affecting? So we have to make sure that we're showing also real time tangible results from these boycotts and how it's helping and is DEI really helping at the end of the day. We discussed this a lot since the beginning of this year, the importance or effectiveness of it. Um,
Right. And I think those are great points. And that's again why I think it's important to understand that there are black owned businesses out here that we can redirect our money toward. There's a website which we'll post when we are publicizing this episode by Black, BYBLACK.US. I actually helped work on this website a few summers ago when I was up in DC, and it has a
that's great
running
to hear.
list
Yeah. Hmm.
of black owned products. And so a lot of folks who have pulled, right, a lot of black owned or black business owners have pulled their products from stores like Target and Walmart, and they're exclusively selling them online. So you can spend your money, redirect your money that way. That's one example. Additionally, and to Clay's point, Pastor Bryant has talked about this as well. Even during the Montgomery bus boycott, right? Some of those bus companies employed black people, black mechanics, black engineers. Of course, they were kept separate from the white folks, but they were still making money because of these bus companies. Same thing here. There are black people who work at Walmart, black people who work at Target. But again, to Clay's point, really think hard about how these people who have all the money in the world, these corporate presidents and CEOs, feel about you. Anytime you boycott, anytime you engage in a social movement, there's a level of sacrifice. And so, if you really want to see the results, I mean, this Target boycott is clearly working. Target has lost so much of its valuation. They decided to slash their CEO's salary because they haven't made many gains. The number of black people who work at Target is still relatively the same. It's not like they fired all their black employees. And so at the end of the day, taking your money and investing it directly into black or brown owned businesses is important. And this boycott is making a difference. And so, yes, there are conversations about the black owned products in Target or the black people who work at Target. But again, there are ways to support those people directly while still taking a stance against the greater corporation. And so at the end of the day, to Clay's point, you're going to have to make the decision for yourself. But for all of us, it's going to be a bit of a sacrifice. I guess the question becomes, how much are you willing to sacrifice for the greater good?
Yeah, for sure. Now, this kind of leads over into the next topic about you mentioned Jeff Bezos getting married in Venice. Not going to spend too much time on that because I think you and I both agree on the optics of that. But my thoughts are like, look at your ex-wife who privately donates to HBCUs and everything else, and look at what you're doing. I mean, Jeff Bezos used to be, well, at least in many circles, was a quite a renowned man. Yeah, what he did with Amazon was great, but just as of late, he's just been on the wrong side of the track or the wrong side of history, especially when it came to the Washington Post and the lack of endorsement of a presidential candidate in the last cycle. And
Right.
you're donating money to inauguration now. Again, you can fact check me on that because I might be right or might be wrong with that, but you seem like you're cozying up to the people who are on the wrong side of history, just to maintain your billions. And it's just he just went into to make a Star Wars reference to dark side. You know, he did everything but put a black cloak on and take out a lightsaber. I'm serious.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think it is troubling. And I think, I talked to some folks about this and they say, oh, well, billionaires and rich folks have always kind of cozied up to the administration because they want some kind of perks. I don't remember seeing it like this, though, because in
Yeah,
this case, there's so much reciprocity. The billionaires are doing that. And then Trump is also, when it suits him, of course, reciprocating. And by that, I mean he's having them sit on the front row of his inauguration
yeah,
ceremonies.
like
I
come
mean, that's
on.
just not a good look. Again, to your point, where so many Americans are struggling financially or economically, to have billionaires like Bezos and Elon Musk, who, is in and out of Trump's good graces, but um, the Apple guy, even I'm like
Tim
Tim
Cook,
Cook, I
yeah.
think it is. Oh, what are we doing here? Where are people who actually have strong morals and are willing to take a stand and they really care about their employees and they understand that everybody's not making $100,000 a year? I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then for Bezos to go over to Venice at this time, um, and while we're trying to pass this big beautiful bill or big ugly bill, depending on which side you listen to, that has all these cuts in it. And for him to go over there, and even for some of the celebrities to go over there, I think Oprah was there and Gayle King,
Yeah.
who just is everywhere now. Anyway, they just seem to be like, okay, this is all fine. I'm not going to talk about anything else going on, but I get a little weekend getaway in Venice. Like, that's just what I'm going to do. I'm not saying they're necessarily wrong. I'm just saying it's a bad look.
Yeah.
And I am saying that Bezos can certainly do more with
Yeah.
his money. I'm sure he does a lot of charitable works, but look at Bill Gates, right? And the Gates Foundation, and the way that they spend their money and the way that they don't go to all these high-end events. I don't think Bill Gates was at Trump's inauguration because they don't play that. Bill and Melinda Gates. I mean, she's for abortion rights and reproductive access. I mean, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything, as the quote goes. And so it's very troubling to see Bezos and especially, yeah, you're right, since he overtook or bought the Washington Post, to see the way that he is not taking stances on what's right. It's very troubling to me.
Yeah, and I had to say a few things here about what you were mentioning. I'm quite a little disappointed with the tech industry and how they've aligned lately. The tech execs with this administration, and they've kind of leaned into this right-wing extremism. Tech companies historically were always kind of the apolitical, or if they were political, they were more left-leaning. It seems like now they kind of taken a quasi-conservative approach. Um, and these are products that we consume pretty much daily, even products we're using right here to do this show. just from the setup, everything. So we were talking about the boycotts previously, but you can't really boycott. Can't boycott Zoom. We can't boycott most of the stuff that we're using. So that makes it even more difficult in that regard. But just to see these tech billionaires of OpenAI, Apple, and all the way down the list, it's just like really just when they took a stance a few years ago after January 6th to distance themselves from any right-wing extremism. They blocked Trump from even having accounts, and it seemed like ever since he got back into power, they just reversed all of that and they just rolled out the red carpet. I really thought that Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, and everybody else was just taking stands, not letting them have an active social media account. That was real stances. Even though I had my views on it at the time, in hindsight now, I kind of okay. Well, at least you were trying because we see what we have now. So my
Yeah,
position
what
on,
about just on that note, what are your thoughts on that 180 in a way that Mark Zuckerberg has done? I mean, it seems like Facebook is kind of going downhill or Meta. He's yeah, basically aligned himself with Trump now.
yeah, I'm not really, I'm really disappointed in Mark Zuckerberg. I feel like a lot of these CEOs just flip-flop back and forth. I mean, this is a guy who's at least participated and worked with Senator Booker on inner city programs in Newark. Again, you can fact check the specifics on that in the past. Um, he's done good things, but again, he puts on that dark cloak and joins the dark side. For what reason? You have all the money. That's the problem. These folks are choosing to take sides when they don't need to take. I mean, they're choosing the wrong side for, at least in my mind, for more money when that's not, you don't need it. So you can afford to take a stand. That's just how
Right.
I feel on that. And quite honestly, Oprah and Gayle King, I know those are people that we're not supposed to really be critical of, at least in our community. We're supposed to stay away from criticizing Oprah. But as Karen Hunter says a lot on her show on Urban Radio, like you guys stand for something too. I mean, and even Gayle King always just seems to fall on the wrong side of anything of the culture. I mean, the Blue Origin flights, okay, bad optics, especially the way you conducted yourself in that. Um, Everything. And then, the Harvey Weinstein thing, that's another one. And even if you go all the way to the Michael Jackson family interviews, or I mean, I could just go down the list, even to even and you probably remember this too, interviewing Lisa Leslie and asking bringing up Kobe's rape allegations after he literally just passed away. I mean, like Oprah and Gayle just have not been on the right side of anything with the culture, whether it's on the social level, cultural commentary level, or even on the economic level. And I don't want to keep on hearing that, well, people are donating to charities and whatnot. Anybody can. Most of the time they do that is because they can get a tax write-off.
Right.
I want to see tangibles. I want to see tangibles where people are directly impacted, not just you can't donate to a charity one day, then you want to donate to a Trump's inauguration next day. It don't work that way.
Right.
Sorry, it doesn't, man. I went off on a rant there.
No, you're preaching. You are preaching. Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk and I want to get your thoughts because I know this is something that kind of ebbs and flows and unfortunately is a part of American life or culture these days. But some of this violence that we've seen recently. So the other day there was this ambush in Idaho where a young man actually intentionally set a fire to draw out firefighters in Idaho, and then he ended up shooting and killing two firefighters. I think others are in critical condition or on life support now. And then, of course, I think we discussed this, but a few weeks ago there were those assassinations, political assassinations of folks in Minnesota, state lawmakers. That shooter was captured alive, and they found a list of, I believe, over 40 lawmakers and they were all Democrats. So that was obviously politically motivated. Trump did not attend the other day the state funerals of those folks in Minnesota. Joe Biden did, Kamala Harris did, Tim Walz did. Trump did not. He's trying to pass this big, beautiful bill, I guess. But then he mentioned the other day that he's going to visit Alligator Alcatraz, which is some detention facility in Florida, I think.
Yeah.
And he said that's going to be his next big visit. I mean, what do you make of this? The way that we've normalized political violence, such that the current United States president doesn't even feel like he needs to go to the funeral of these people who died at the hands of someone who may have supported Trump. Um, Again, just terrible look, terrible optics to me, but I don't know if people care.
Well, that's the thing. I was just thinking yesterday after listening to a Karen Hunter show on Urban Radio podcast, and it was mentioned about how no one's talking about those assassinations. That's really kind of disheartening because we've we really just got used to it now. We got desensitized to it. After that manhunt, we never really heard about it again. And it's really just kind of been swept under the rug. And I mean, they didn't even talk about Biden and Harris being there holding hands. I mean,
Right.
I don't know. Maybe you were watching more mainstream news that particular day, but I didn't see it circulate on social media like it should have. So that was really
And
quite
why do you think that is? I mean, let's hone in on that for a little bit because a lot of people on social media are talking about that. Anytime there's a more conservative leaning or a Trump supporter that ends up being the assassin, for lack of a better word, then it doesn't seem to be talked about as much. However, of course, Trump's assassination attempts were talked about on CNN and everything else, and those may have been left-leaning people. Why do you think that's such a difference?
Well, I'm really just starting to figure this has to do with the levers of who's controlling the media now. When if it's I mean, let's be real, CNN is owned by a conservative now, or at least run by one, and I think that has a lot to do with it. I could be wrong, but and I also think it's the idea to protect and subconsciously protect white male assassins, especially if they're conservative leaning for whatever reason. If we're just gonna be honest, I think the reason is because there's some alignment of a feeling there. I mean, again, I don't want to keep bringing this up because it's really controversial, but when Luigi Mangione did what he allegedly did, we talk about that nonstop because that's more of a left-leaning issue. But and then when people are like, I don't feel bad for the CEO of United Healthcare passing, we get ridiculed for that. But now let's compare and contrast the two. These elected officials were killed for taking a stand. The other individual, right or wrong, was take allegedly taken out for being essentially being responsible for illegal killing. Or, I'll put it this way. If you allow people to die in your presence physically and you don't render any aid, you're an accomplice.
Right.
You basically have an accomplice to senseless deaths in the corporate structure, obviously. So yeah, I think that that's really deep, and wherever you may fall on that, my opinion on that whole situation has always been I don't have a feeling. And so but I'm going to be very sensitive now. I'm not saying we should go be taking out people. No. But I'm not gonna, I don't feel, well, I feel very indifferent on the whole thing. Now, obviously, what happened to the elected officials in Minnesota, that's terrible and that's senseless. So we have to make sure that when we compare and contrast, because Fox News will be quick, and these conservative outlets will be quick to bring it up, their hypocrisy all the time. We just have to know these differences.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's also something to be said, regardless of political affiliation, excuse me, for how we talk about generators. Because to your point, whenever it's a white male assassin, even with this fire, this just strange and senseless act that this young man, whose parents, for better for worse, I think, were serious Trump supporters who pushed weapons on this young man from an early age. Even when that was starting to be reported, they immediately said, well, we don't know what's going on here. It seems like he may have set these fires intentionally to draw out law enforcement, and it's probably mental health.
Yeah.
Black young men who engage in violence never get that kind of pass from the jump. Oh, it's probably their mental health, right? And inherent in that comment is, oh, it's something they can't control, or it's something that was kind of pushed upon them, or it's something that, is a result of their circumstances. Black and even Latino men don't get that same commentary, right?
Yeah.
Immediately, it has to do with their maybe their environment, but something very negative and something they can control, right?
Yeah.
Maybe has to do with guns, how prevalent guns are in that community, or the fact that, maybe this person's on drugs or something. But to just say mental health, we don't see that for black and brown perpetrators, but it seems to be the first thing people jump to for white men. So what do you think that is? I mean, do you think
Yeah,
it's a racial
yeah,
component? Do you think it's something else?
it's racial component. Whenever we and you're studying, you studied law over these last few years. You definitely know the disparities there for sure. Dare I say, a lot of crimes that originate from people who look like us are more on the poverty driven side of things or socioeconomic side of things. It's hard, not that much, and I'm not presenting any raw data, but it's never out of just pure evil malice. Ours is always typically at a root of lack. Now obviously there's some evil killers out there, yes, but like even if you go down to petty crimes and theft, a lot of these things are because people are in need or they're more poverty driven and such. Um, but but yeah, you're absolutely right. We don't ever get to claim, like I don't know if you remember the Affluenza team years back. About this white teen who I think it was in Texas. He was like stealing cars and whatnot.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
He
he
claimed
claimed,
that, being affluent was why he did that or something.
yeah. And D.L. Hughley had said on the radio at the time, well, black folks could never claim brocolepsy. So I mean, that's exactly how I echo that. I echo that sentiment. We could never say, well, because I ain't had no money, I'm broke, and I'm trying to feed my family. I mean, we don't get that. We don't
Mm,
epilepsy, but he gets to claim affluenza. So
mm.
those are my thoughts on that.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah,
that's powerful. Um, did you have anything to talk about next?
yeah. Let's talk about New York, New York elections.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on Donnie Mandini, and that shocking upset because I had I had Cuomo winning, um, I had Cuomo winning that and such, so that was really a surprise. And he's now going to be running as an independent. That's what sources are saying. And Eric Adams launched his campaign um, as an independent, and surprisingly, he had a lot of backing. Now, I don't know if those supporters were paid or not, but
I saw that. He
that
had a
was
lot
a
of
little
people
surreal.
behind him. A
That
lot
was
of
a little
black folks
surreal.
too.
So, what are your thoughts on the primary, how that turned out?
Sure. I mean, first of all, you're right. Eric Adams has now launched his campaign as an independent. Eric Adams, for those who may not know, is the current mayor of New York, former police officer. He has a lot of backing, at least it appears, from older black folks in particular, and from a lot of big money big dollar donors. He came out swinging against Mamdani. We'll see what happens with Cuomo, who I think Clay is correct, did say he's going to stay in the race, which I think means he's going to run as an independent. So you got Cuomo, you'll have Adams, and you'll have Mamdani. And it was definitely an upset. I'm not super surprised. I was following the race pretty closely, especially because Mamdani is on social media a lot. And so I was able to kind of track what was going on. And he was speaking to the issues that matter. That's kind of the theme of today's conversation. You have to talk about what people really care about in order to make a sustainable difference. And so he's been talking about the just ridiculous rent prices in New York. He's been talking about groceries and making sure there are affordable groceries for people to buy in New York. He's been talking about young people and how we are the leaders of the future. And he's been talking about Dr. King and Dr. King's dream to not go to war and not just uselessly spend, but instead pour that money back into the community. And I think that resonated with folks. And then, of course, Cuomo had his double baggage, as I call it. He had that baggage of the sexual assault allegations, and then also some of the mishaps with how he ran nursing homes during the COVID-19 pandemic. So people just literally, New Yorkers threw him out with the bathwater, as they say, and I guess he just can't go away. It was funny. People also were saying, Clay, during the race that Cuomo would show up in these like black tinted window SUVs to meetings or to rallies and then like get run right back to the car and go home. Whereas Mamdani was out walking around, right? He was talking to supporters. He posted some videos where he ended up getting some Cuomo supporters and Adams supporters to end up ranking Mondani on their ballot. If not one, then number two. And New York abides by
Yeah,
ranked choice voting,
imagine.
at least in the primary. And so this helped Mamdani. I mean, he's just very smart. He's young. He does have experience, contrary to what people are saying. He is currently on the city council, I believe, or on some sort of city commission. And
He's
he
an assembly member.
Assembly member, thank you.
Assembly
And
member.
he has influence, obviously, and it goes beyond social media. People on the ground there in New York say they really resonate with him, and he's making a difference. So I hope, out of the candidates we have now, I hope that he wins in November. He's being attacked very heavily, especially by conservatives, for his race and for his religion. And so I don't think that's helpful. That's something that certainly needs to be called out. But yeah, I think it was an upset. I hope he wins in November. You know, I'm all for young people in positions of leadership. And I think Eric Adams has done a terrible job. And I think he's very cocky. And I think something sketchy happened with the fact that he was not charged with those federal crimes that the government was investigating him for. So,
Trump.
I mean, he just came out swinging, immediately attacking Mamdani, immediately saying that dude doesn't have experience. I think he even went so far as to say that Mamdani gets like manicures and tries to keep his nails clean, and Eric
Yeah,
Adams is
yeah.
like, we need somebody who gets their hands dirty. I'm like, dude. Anyway,
Dude, you wear earrings.
those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts right
Bro, you
now.
wear an earring and you go, what?
Literally, no, literally. That's crazy. Very critical.
Yeah, so he's AOC backed, and AOC continues to be a weird force. And Bernie. I've never really been a big Bernie fan. I just haven't, especially the way he kind of talks down to black voters, and he doesn't do enough. He has never really done enough outreaching, in my opinion, in black circles. Like, when he ran for president in 16 and 20, he was never really at black churches in the South. Never in many spaces in the South. Not really. Not to a heavy extent like his primary opponents were. And I just feel like he kind of brings in that white progressive grievance that could vote for Trump in a minute. Like there's always a fine line between Bernie supporters and Trump supporters. Like because you hear about those things. Like anybody who could vote for Bernie or Trump, I'm really kind of wondering where their head is at. Because that's a fine line right there. I once heard about a story about a black man in Boston bumped into a guy, his coffee spilled, and he called him the N-word, but he had a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker by his car. I don't know how true that story was, but I mean, what?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's somebody's story. I don't know if it's true or not, but I mean,
Probably is in this country. Probably is.
yeah, but as far as like going back to AOC doing this whole Bernie tour, like, okay, what's the aim of it? So far, I think it might be working. If she wants to take credit for Mondani, I'll give her that. Um, and your girl Jasmine Crockett, she's starting to win me over just a tad. You know how critical,
Wow, look at that. Look at that.
especially what she said lately about Trump and having anger babies and his wife and all that.
She doesn't pull any punches.
Yeah, and she did say at a recent event, I think it was at Tribeca where she was speaking with Whoopi Goldberg on a panel about how the Democrats are going to look for a safe white boy. the next time around, and we don't need to have we don't need to have a Coke Zero version of or they call it Trump Light. Basically, it means we don't need to have Trump Zero
Mm,
or a Diet Trump version. We need to have somebody like Mandini, and there's nothing. I think we've been so conditioned to believe that moderate politics, especially on our side of the aisle, is the right way to go. I never hear conservative Republicans say we need to be more moderate. It's been a long time since a Republican said we need to be moderate more towards the center.
right,
It's been a long time. They was
right,
like, this is where we are, this is where we stand. You gotta come towards us. We, except for the AOCs or the Jasmine Crockett's or really or um, Ayanna Presley. I'll probably go give it a little more to Ayanna Presley than Jasmine Crockett in just in that regard. But they're like, now you gotta come towards our side on the left. But Democrats for the last gosh knows how long have been trying to always do things pragmatically from the center or do things in the center right to get their votes and support. And no, there's nothing wrong with a $30 minimum wage. Like we've been so conditioned to believe that's wrong. Like
right,
we've been conditioned to believe that having a higher minimum wage is a bad thing. Like I
right.
what? Or having food to eat or have not having expensive rents or expensive cost of living is a bad thing. Well, if we just work with them and even with this big beautiful bill, like we should have Medicaid. Like I mean, there's just things that are just common sense and.
Right.
I wasn't really feeling Mondini until I heard his interviews because I really wasn't paying attention because I didn't think he was going to win. So I paid him no mind.
Hmm.
And he made good sense. I'm kind of glad he's kind of speaking on a direct, blunt. Nah, we shouldn't have billionaires. Nah, I think we should have this. About time. I may not
Right.
agree with every core tenet, but during these times, we need something radical. We don't need to have, well, let's just try to be more, we could be inclusive, but not like, no, no, no. We're not affecting us. We need to just go full out. Look, we need to have free Walmarts. Like I'm glad somebody just finally said it.
Right. He's very direct. He's very direct and commonsensical, and I appreciate that. In the time we have left, I wanted to get your thoughts on the other big news, kind of related to the big beautiful bill. But that is that North Carolina senator or U.S. senator from North Carolina, Tom Tillis, announced his retirement, and now he seems, to your point, free to speak his mind and call out Trump. And now people are wondering, okay, is Roy Cooper going to run now for that seat? What are your thoughts on all of that and the fact that Tillis is kind of finally speaking
Well,
his
the way he
mind and
wore
has
that
been
outfit the
unleashed?
other day, he looked like he lost some weight. I'm wondering, is he okay? How's his health? Because my boy looked skinny and he looked like he was a Montana. He looked like he's from Montana the way he wore that outfit.
I saw that medallion thing.
Yeah. It's a
He's totally done. He's
a little
checked
known
out.
fact. He's my father's neighbor. And
Oh, really?
yes, yeah, a little known fact. But that's besides the point. But Terrence is a weird guy. He's a unique guy. But I mean, this is North Carolina, so what can you expect? I have my thoughts on who should run for Senate. Cooper, Leonardo Williams. I'm just being honest. I mean, so there's folks who I think can and should do it. Maybe somebody like Chris Ray. If he still has residencies here, and I'm kind of dropping local names for our audiences. But I look. I Tillis can't go back now. He turned the corner. He ain't coming back. So we might as well just go all out now. Be how he wants to be. Those are my
Right.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree. Just in the time we have left, shout out, as we always do, to the sports world, to the WNBA for expanding to Cleveland, to Detroit, and Philadelphia. They're going to have some expansion teams soon. So
Excellent.
I'm glad to see that they're still kind of on the rise and creating a name for themselves that people can latch on to. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back soon. Enjoy your July 4th weekend. And yeah,
Stay away
we'll
from
be back in
Target.
touch. Bye, Black. Bye,
All
Black
right.
Gold.
Yeah, have a good one. Bye
Take
bye.
care, everybody. Peace.